Hey, folks, welcome to this week's episode of What's Bruin here on 6342 Productions. I am your host, Chris Nosek, joined as I am every week by my co host, the bomb dropper himself, Dom Tiano. Dom, how are you? We've had a lot go on since our last show.
Oh man. Can't keep up with it all. I'm doing well. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great. Been making it out to Dev Camp so far each day. Looking
Yeah,
forward
so
to
what
tomorrow.
while we wait for people to come in, I have a question for you about
Sure.
development camp.
Sure.
Now,
And we have
you and I always talk a little bit before we go on and a little bit after the show, and you've been kind of picking my brain on how to watch players when you go to a hockey game. How different has it been for you now?
So development camp is a little bit different. I do want to say hey to
Yeah.
Kevin's jumping in, Matrix is jumping in as well. It's a lot different at development camp because there's so much going on that you want to pay attention to, and when you have stuff going on this half of the rink and this half of the rink, and it's different drills, you want to see how different people do, and there's a lot more going on, so it's a lot harder to focus on just that one player versus if you were to go and look. I used the example earlier. If I want to go watch Locke Mellis play at UMass, I'm not worried about 98% of the rest of the roster, so it'll be a lot easier to hone in and what he's doing. But I can then compare it to some of the notes that I've taken from watching him at camp. My God, he's got good hands.
Oh yeah.
He's got good hands. Um, it's been a lot of fun to observe, though. Letourneau looks good. I can't. The name escapes me. That 17-year-old kid they just drafted. He had a fantastic day today.
Morello?
Morello, thank you. Oh man, he looks so good today.
He can play. How about my boy Jonathan Mirenberg from
Oh man,
Sweden?
when is he not gonna be playing in Sweden anymore? I want to see him in Providence.
One more season. Give it
Oh
one
man,
more year.
just everything he does is smooth.
Yeah.
You know, um, a guy like Jackson Edwards, his game is rounded out. He's becoming one of those good at everything, excelling at nothing, but
Yep.
steady. And I mean, the physicality is definitely going to be there, though.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I've noticed a night and day difference between Brett Harrison, the way he's come into camp from this year versus last year. I don't know. He's one I'm interested to see in the scrimmage on Thursday. Um, there's a bit more intensity to what he's bringing to camp this year than he did last year. But when you're, doing edge work and stick handling, and today they got into a little bit more of the one-on-one board battles, and he was paired up with Poitras a lot. So, big literal difference in body size there. So he did have a bit of an advantage there. So it may have looked like he wasn't trying as much, but having 2 feet and 30 pounds on the kid
Yeah.
might have something to do with it. So I really want to see how he does in Providence this year, and definitely how he does in the scrimmage on Thursday.
Yeah. That's always been an issue for him is his intensity. So
But
glad he's bringing it.
I will say Svedback also looks pretty darn good. He's tracking the puck well. They're working him the hardest of all the goaltenders I've noticed. So I think they're giving him a real decent look. Bischel has been all right. I mean, they will do their own goaltending work, and it's
Hmm.
really, they're getting pucks hit at them by coaches, not 80-mile-an-hour slap shots from the point through traffic. So it can be harder to tell. Um, so it'll be more worth watching them during the scrimmage, but they definitely seem to be tracking the puck well, and he's trapping things in the chest and not giving up stupid rebounds more often than not. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's a there, as they would say.
Well, he needs a bounce back here. He
It'll
does.
be interesting to see. um Gallagher's playing pretty well. He's had a good showing as well. It'll be really interesting to see how he does in his new Colorado college.
Yeah.
With hopefully some extra ice time there, because there's he's flashing at camp in some good ways. And then Konstantinsky, his skating is worlds better than it was last year, but still in the needs improvement category. I have some video footage that I can send your way from. He's doing more one-on-one with the coaching staff. Not as much of the puck handling drills with some of the other guys, but he they're working with him. They're being patient with him. I mean, if you can get this kid some confidence too. One thing I did notice was they were doing a backward skating drill the other day from far blue line back to the red line, and just every time he was done his turn, he's beating himself up over stuff, and there's a huge lack of confidence in his own game that they need to find a way to fix as well.
Yeah.
He definitely has the mindset of skating is my biggest weakness, and he's nitpicking every little thing he does.
Well,
and there's Kevin with his comment.
Let's get on to the big news. The weekend that was.
Oh, the flurry of free agency.
Well, I've been calling it the Boston frenzy.
Yeah.
There's some mixed reviews, and everybody's entitled to an opinion. That they gave Lindholm too many years. Most people are okay with the dollars, but you know what? To get him, you're going to have to give up the term. And bringing him in has improved 3 positions. Okay.
Kevin's right there with you. The Twitter town criers have been out in force. Yeah, there's something wrong with everything.
Kevin, stop interrupting me mid-sentence. Lindholm has improved 3 positions. Now, whether you think he's a number 1 center or not, he's a number 1 center on this team. So he's improved that position. He's moved, that forces Charlie Coyle down to number 2, which improves number 2 center position. He's pushed Pavel Zacha to left wing, which in turn improves the left wing position. So in one move, the Bruins improved on 3 positions just by slotting people in better position.
Yeah. Clap bombs acquire moms on Twitter said you're creating a domino effect down the lineup and putting people back where they should be. It's like when you brought David Krejci back in.
Yep.
Apparently Kevin's trying to blame me for him interrupting you. And Peter calls it the Boston free agent massacre. Yeah.
Now, you look at Nikita Zadorov, and I'll be honest, I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. Okay. Back in his draft year, I remember getting into a lot of debates with a lot of different people. Bob McKenzie was one of them on Nikita Zadorov. And I said that he's not as good as you guys make him out to be. He's not. You guys are overrating him. And for several years, I looked like I was right. Now, give the guy credit. The last couple of years, something's clicked with him. He still doesn't have very good analytic numbers, but he's improved this defense. He's given them a lot of things that they were lacking: mobility, or an ability to get the puck out of the zone, a shot from the point, the physicality, somebody who will stick up for teammates.
Yeah.
Is it a little bit more money and a little bit more term than I would have liked? Yeah, but again, you had to pay the price to get him.
Right.
5 years from now, or 6 years from now, the cap's going to be at $110 million. Who cares what he's making
Yeah, barring
in
another
6
COVID
years?
season. Oh,
Yeah,
God. Like the cap's going up astronomically. It's going to age well. And when the
yeah,
cap is that high, it's a very tradable contract that you can get out of
yeah.
as
It's
long as you
not like, let's say, Jake DeBrusk contract, who has a full no trade or no movement clause for 3 years, is buyout proof
yeah.
and is 7 years long. People
Yeah.
fail to realize that Jake DeBrusk's contract is buyout proof.
Yeah, and there were people calling for him to be bought out in Boston just 2 years ago. So,
Yeah,
it's going to be part of the ebbs and flows. And like you said, there's some things you got to give concession on when it comes to contract negotiation. And I think some of that buyout proof, the no movement clause, I think some of that was where Don Sweeney dug his heels in with a guy like Jake DeBrusk and said, this is how the contract's going to be. This is our offer. Take it or leave it. And DeBrusk said no. He got what he was looking for from Vancouver. I think he'll do very well in Vancouver. It just, and also if you go back and do the math, regardless of the Korpisalo contract, you go out and you get Lindholm and you go out and you get Zadorov, you don't have enough money to bring back DeBrusk at that price.
no.
You just don't. So
Another, I think, very underrated signing is Max Jones.
yes, only $1 million.
He's going to play on the fact that the Bruins are identifying former London Knights really caught me, I guess, by surprise. But you've often heard me say nobody in junior hockey prepares players better for the NHL than Dale Hunter.
Yeah, I've heard you say that a lot. So
now
it says something.
Yeah. Now, Jones hasn't always been placed in situations that are best for him, but hearing Don Sweeney talk, he realizes that. The Bruins realize that, and they're going to put him in a position to succeed. And he could turn out to be a big surprise.
I think he'll do well in Boston, work his way into the lineup and do quite well. And with Zadorov, yeah, it's a little longer, a little more than I would have liked. That's the cost of getting someone through free agency.
Mm-hmm.
They're not homegrown. And two things can be true. He can be slightly overpaid, slightly overrated, but still be exactly what this team needed. Those two things can coexist in a world. I do want to get caught up on a couple comments. Mr. Tenkrat is chiming in. Dom is confirming Matty P at 3C. I got to tell you, Patra looks healthy. He looks 100%. He's put on some weight, not as much as I think we would like to have seen.
But he's still got a couple of months.
He's still got time. And
I will say about Matty Patra what I always say: don't count this kid out.
No,
his work ethic and his heart. If you could take his heart and transplant it into any one of 23 other Boston Bruins, I would be happy.
Oh yeah, and honestly, just seeing the transformation, seeing that he's healthy, he's not shying away from any contact with the shoulder, and or anything like that. He's showing you exactly what you want to see from someone coming back from an injury, and yeah, I want to insulate him with guys like Frederick and Geeky on that third line, but and there are going to be plenty of guys that he just doesn't have the strength yet to win faceoffs on, but I mean, buckle the fuck up for him at 3C. That's what I can tell you. Big Mike is asking assume 3 years no movement at for both AD and then no trade clause. I think you're talking about for the Lindholm contract there, but I haven't heard anything regarding that, so I don't know. I don't know if you have.
I've got the details, but I can't access them right now on my computer. So
That's fine.
um,
Brave says, I would have liked to bring in Skinner. His 5-on-5 scoring would have helped a lot. Yeah, I agree. He would have been someone worth looking at, but based on what he signed for with Edmonton, you weren't going to be able to bring him in.
yeah, we'll talk to the cap about the cap in a bit. A lot of it is cap related,
Yeah.
and you know, we'll when we get to that, we'll discuss what the possibilities going forward are for the Bruins.
Yeah. Clap Bombs also says, I think Zadorov will flourish here in Boston. I think you're also giving him an opportunity where he can flourish. You're
Yeah,
giving him a chance where he can play 18 to 22 minutes a night based off of conditions and what's going on. And it's allowing you to really balance out that left side with Lindholm and with Lori. Like I said, he's exactly what you needed on that side. Is he a little bit overpaid for it? Yeah. Is the term a little longer than what I've liked? Sure, but it's still it's what you needed in the lineup.
it's
Kevin
the
says,
cost of doing business.
exactly. Kevin says what people aren't understanding is that last season you had Heinen and or Geeky in your top six. This upcoming season you'll have competition on the second right wing spot. That hasn't changed.
We'll
But
get to that too.
is you've swapped out Lindholm for DeBrusque. That's an upgrade. It's allowed you to have much more stability in the middle and kick Zaka to a more comfortable spot. This is an upgrade, 100%. Like Dom said, it's a three-way upgrade. Tenkrat says, think you're overpaying in either AAV or term on every top free agent contract. It is what it is. So yeah,
Exactly.
cost of doing business. Let's see. Love Jake, but he's been just so frustrating to watch after he was concussed by Kadri in the playoffs years ago. That's my conspiracy theory. Okay. Wasn't big on him before, but at this point, I would like Vrana on a 1-year deal. Prove you still have value to compete with the kids. I don't think you're going to see veteran guys get that prove it deal. I think you're going to see, if anybody's going to get it, the tweener kind of guys, because that's where you're going to be able to get guys like Liesel and Merkulov to try and step their game up to beat out someone who could take that spot in a longer term role. And I want to say, I'm guessing, Brave, this question's about Poitras, his weight. I want to say they have him around 182, 183 on the dev camp sheet this year.
If
Yeah,
he
he
can
put
get
on
to 190 for the preseason,
yeah,
he's doing good. And there's time for him to do it.
yeah, he put on about 8 to 10 pounds this so far, and yeah, 195, 200 would be perfect, right where you would want to get him, and it's coming in as much like he's not, you're not seeing it in the areas where it's going to be fat. It's muscle. He's stockier. He's filling out. I mean, he was fucking 19 last year, so
Yep.
he's still growing there too. Zadorov for the past few years has got better every single year. I see him taking another step this upcoming season in Boston. I think 2 years the contract will look very good. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're not
And
putting him in a
they,
pressure situation either.
they've got a good coach back there for the defense.
Yeah.
So let's see what Leach can do with him.
Yep. And he's is someone, as Matrix saying, clearing out in front of the net is a huge thing. He's someone who can help with that. I think he's going to play in a way that a lot of people wish Brandon Carlo would, but isn't his game.
I don't understand Mike's comment there. Some surprise they went with D for the next C.
I think, Mike, if you could clarify, I think what he's
Yeah.
referring to is they went for defense as opposed to a center.
But we knew
Was the set.
defense was an issue for this team. They
I
needed
thought
to
they
get a
were
left defenseman.
2 forwards, still like the signing. There's still time, Mike. That's the other thing. It was right now. They still have time. I think I have the graphic that you sent me here.
Don't put it up yet.
No, you don't want to have it up? All
Not
right.
yet.
I was just trying to get the cap number. They still have what, 11, about 11 and a half, 11.2.
No, they haven't got that much. We'll get to it.
Could we make a move and get McGroarty? He would help us. Marshy getting old. I mean, they're still fishing around from the sounds of it. I haven't heard that that's a dead thing in the water yet. So
no.
Let's see. Think Bruins are bringing back all the expiring Providence guys, or Gula,
Yeah,
McLaughlin, Callahan.
they
Weren't they
are.
all qualifying
They've all been qualified, and they'll all be back. Yet they still need another left shot defenseman down in Providence, and we'll get to that in a bit.
Let's see. Clapbomb says, let's change pace a bit here. Do you think Boston's decision to draft Letourneau has helped, knowing that he has committed to BC with Jay Pandolfo? That's quite a nice development path if you're the Bruins.
I have no issue with the pick. None whatsoever.
I got to tell you, he's got a smooth stride. He looks great skating. I'm surprised he made it to camp so quick, but he looks good. Monday, you could see there was a little bit of jet lag, and, the kid had a busy week, but between yesterday and today, he's looked real good in camp, especially for a kid of that size. Kevin says, a lot of us thought 2 forwards are coming, and technically it did. May not be 2 top 6 guys, but Jones will surprise here as a solid bottom 6. Yeah, they did sign multiple forwards. Let's see. I know he'll most likely be in Providence, but any idea why Jeffrey Veal contract is 2-way first year and 1-way second year?
Probably because that's what it took to get him to agree to a contract.
Yeah. I like Regula for depth. I don't hate him as depth. You got to get him in first, but he'll be all right. I mean, if you get that far, you've gone through a number of injuries. So our Bruins pretty much done except Swayman and minor stuff.
I think they got minor stuff coming.
Max Jones has some nasty, good power forward. I think he's going to fit in that bottom 6 very, very well.
You guys are going to love him, and he can kill penalties.
And Joel says Dean was my choice. I mean, it's funny, though. I'm not sure if Dean was their number 1 choice. But when was it Utah who jumped ahead of him?
Mm-hmm.
Once that kid got taken, I think they scrambled a little bit, and Dean was second on their list.
Well,
they ended up going.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean there was a huge gap between them. Just to be clear,
NHL teams don't have 200 players on their list. They have maybe 100. They'll have 5 or 6 guys in and around where their pick is. So the Bruins are picking 25th. They probably had 6 names on their list to go in that spot.
Let's see. Matt says, I was hoping Richard stayed in Boston. He was a beast in the AHL. I'm even impressed when he played in Boston.
Yeah, but
I don't know if I'd say he impressed when he was in Boston. He didn't play terrible, but I don't know if I'd say he impressed.
Yeah,
he's still got a little bit of work to do in his game to become a consistent NHL player, but anywhere he's going to get AHL minutes is where he needs to be.
Let's put it this way. Do you want to give a guy a roster spot, even in Providence, that you know what you have, or would you rather have that development time in Providence go to guys like Fabian Lysell, Georgi Merkulov, Riley Durant, Trevor Kuntar, Brett Harrison? I know where I want the roster spots to go.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Steve says, finally, we have big boys on defense. It'll be tough for opponents. Yeah, I mean, everybody's back there is a freaking tree.
Yeah.
Mr. Tenkrat says, would rather Letary than Richard. I think you know what you have in both of them. So to Dom's exact point, I'd rather the guys that you have a chance at getting to a higher ceiling, getting those minutes. Letary and Richard, nothing against them, nothing against their game. Just they are what they are at this point. Like,
I just call him Peter, not Mr. Tenkrat.
All right, we'll call him Peter. Let's see.
Yeah, you can ignore that one.
I was hoping. Too many vets in Providence to begin with. You need a couple in there, but
yeah.
I mean, you've also got some older guys in there, so we'll see. Peter says the big bad Bruins are back.
Yeah.
So
what can we expect? Now you can put up the graphic,
all right,
Chris.
let's see.
For
Let me
those that aren't watching on Twitter or YouTube or whatever, you'll have to. You can go over to Dom.Hockey right now and just click under cap, and you'll see what we're looking at. So this isn't a lineup per se as to what the lines are going to look like. Ideally, I would like Geeky on the third line and Brazeau on the fourth line. This is to give you a 23-man roster, counting Jeremy Swayman, to see what the cap situation is like, because the Bruins are going to have a 23-man roster. Lettieri, he's just there. It could be Lysell, it could be Merkulov, it could be Kuntar. The cap effect is minimal. So, as you can see, they have $8.6 million left to sign Jeremy Swayman. if Swayman comes in at 8 times 8, which is what most people are expecting, it leaves them $600K in cap space. That equals over $3 million at trade deadline to add a roster spot because they're banking cap space. I don't know. What do you think about that, Chris?
It puts them in a position that you want to be in. Like $3 million doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're adding a $3 million player as a potential rental for a playoff run, it makes a huge difference. And to your point, it's a negligible difference if you have Lysell or Merkulov instead of Lettieri, so no big deal there. Osterley, I think he'll end up in Providence as well.
No, but they're going to carry 2 extra defensemen. They're going to carry 2 extra D or 2 extra forwards.
Yeah. The numbers are going to be negligible as far as Wotherspoon, Osterley, and Lettieri, because at most they're going to be $950K each. So negligible difference there. I think you're in a good spot, honestly. I really do.
Yeah. So, I know a lot. Listen, how do I put this? I have a lot of respect for Mark Diver and the work he does with college hockey and the Providence Bruins and all that. A lot of people, because of comments Mark made on a podcast, I forget which podcast it was, about Lysell, thinking that he's a bust. Again, a lot of respect for Mark Diver. I would never contradict anything he said. I think everybody's entitled to an opinion. But a couple of weeks ago, Mark was also on Joe Haggerty's podcast and had nothing but great things to say about Fabian Lysell. So things change. He will be given a shot, as will Merkulov, to crack the roster. And Lysell could steal a right wing spot, which would push Brazeau down to the fourth line, Kostelic in the middle, or Beecher in the middle, or Brazeau was the 13th forward. It's open. The Bruins aren't guaranteeing a roster spot to anybody.
I think Lysell has an inside track for that second right wing spot, but they have no issues with not putting him there either. I mean, based on their comments where he would have gotten games last season if he hadn't gotten hurt, I think they want to see what he looks like in that spot.
Yeah, he'll get an opportunity. And if nothing happens, Sweeney's got room to maneuver.
Yeah. Kevin was asking now, is that 3 million cap space or 3 million deadline cap space? That's 3 million
Deadline cap
deadline
space.
space. So you can bring in someone with a $3 million AAV at the cap or at the deadline if you need to. If you need to. Peter says that seems a little tight when it comes to the money, but that's how this team operates. They operate right up against it. So yeah, it's tight, but that's how they like it. That's a solid roster with space to move around at the deadline. Exactly. Peter's also calling it Dom friendly because we're losing cap friendly.
Yeah.
So we'll enjoy
Thanks,
it.
Peter.
We'll have to enjoy cap friendly for the next 48 hours while we still have it.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Brandon Bussey could go in and steal the job from Eunice Corpusalo.
DiPietro could.
Or DiPietro could. And, we could see Corpusalo down in Providence. And there's more money.
Yep. I mean, I think people are underrating what Corpusalo can actually bring just because he's had a couple down years. But, they don't make that move unless Baba Senza thinks he can work with the guy.
No. And I will say this. Have you got the Dom bomb thing you can put up? Because this is the Dom bomb.
Let me see if I've got the graphic up here somewhere, but probably not readily available. But we'll go with it. We've got a Dom bomb going off here.
Okay, so I can tell you, without naming a name, there's a former Bruin that they had a contract offer to, a forward. And when they realized that they had a shot at Zadorov, they pulled the contract from the table on Monday morning. So that's how much they valued defense over that right wing position.
Yeah, well, that's also goes to show you that they could have kept someone around, but as Brave says here, right wing 2 is the question mark. But I'd like to give Lysell 25 games to see what we have to then make a move if needed. I mean, you don't pull that contract from someone who can fill that spot if you don't think you have someone who can be just as good.
Right.
So, Kevin says, I think Geeky's taking a step in offense this season. I could see him doing very well at the second right wing. I want him on that line with Poitras, though. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go. We got some bombs here. Peter's got 3 bombs. Kevin's got a bomb here. Let's see. I agree, Kevin. I think Kiki's going to have a huge year. Define a huge year for Morgan Kiki, though. That's what I want to know. I do think he'll have a better season offensively now that he's a little bit more settled in the lineup and, knows that he'll have the time on ice to work with. But, I mean...
no, Joel, it wasn't Bertuzzi. It was a player on this year's roster that is now gone.
Let's see. They have bodies to throw at right wing too, but I don't think... But I don't have anyone to throw at LD. Yeah, that's exactly part of it.
Oh, they had nobody. Absolutely nobody.
A former Bruin from this past team. Yes, you keep thinking about it. Let's see. I think Jay Leach is going to have such a profound impact on this roster this year. I can't tell you how much bringing in the extra coach is going to do.
Mm-hmm. I bitched about it for a year on this very show.
It wouldn't be a Don Sweeney team without a hole on second line right wing.
No, but let's look at it. Jake DeBrusk had how many goals?
I don't have that on.
19?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. So they've got to make up 19 goals to replace his production. Lindholm is good for some of them. Zaka should have an increase going back to the wing.
Yes.
Geeky should have an increase in his second year. Frederick should have an increase. You have a full season of Brazil.
Yep.
Have I made up 19 goals yet?
I mean, even if you haven't, you're still hovering around 15.
You don't think Lindholm can get 15 on his own?
Oh, he probably could. I'm saying, like, even if you haven't made up the full 19, you're not that far from it.
Yeah.
You know, he could probably get 19 on his own anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and people want to use the argument that his best year came when he had Gaudreau on one side and Tkachuk on the other. Well, you know, he's got good talent on his wing here in Boston too. It's we're not putting him at 3C with Geeky and Fred Frederick either.
Right.
So, you know, he will have good talent. Joel says, okay, so it's JD. I'll let you take that one if you so choose. Peter says must be referring to Derek Forbort. I don't think Forbort could have filled in that right wing spot, but maybe. We'll let you guys keep guessing. Joel, I agree with you. I don't like Geeky in the top 6, better on the third. But as Kevin says, they didn't upgrade the second right wing spot. So right now on paper, he is the best bet. Freddie could also go there, but I'd rather the right shot. I mean, toss up between the two right now as to who's the better right wing two. But again, you give Lysell the spot in camp, see what he can do with it, and go from there. And Brave, yep, Poitras will score more if he can remain healthy, so he'll get a few extra goals in there. He also wants Lindholm will double DeBrusk's points centering pasta.
Yeah, I think this notion or this thing that's out there that they didn't replace DeBrusk scoring is just false. It's not true.
I believe
I think they've more than replaced it.
Jason says, I think a lot of players have the potential to boost the scoring to make up for the loss of JD. Yeah.
Just the blue line alone.
Right.
Expect a lot more offense from the blue line this year. I mean, Zadorov may be good for 10 himself.
I was going to say, you expect more goals from it, but also by bringing in Zadorov and slotting everyone in properly and bringing in a coach to work with the defense, I think you're going to give up fewer goals. And yes, that's including having Korpisalo instead of Ullmark.
Well, there's another thing that I want to touch on is the goaltending. So with Ullmark, let's say if everybody was healthy, you had an even split, 41 games apiece. Okay?
Yep.
How much worse is the goaltending when Swayman is going to get an extra 20 games and you shelter Korpisalo or Bussy against the Columbuses, the San Jose's, the Chicagos of the league? We know Swayman's going to be in there for every playoff game.
Right.
So how much worse is the goaltending?
I don't think it's going to be that much worse. And I think a lot of people forget, they didn't pay attention to the way Korpisalo looked individually when he was on such bad Columbus teams. This is a guy who put up 74 saves in a triple overtime game in Columbus in a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a ceiling there that's quite high. He's been on bad Columbus teams. Everybody in Ottawa sucked last year. Some of it was the goaltending. Some of it was the defense. Some of it was everybody sucked in Ottawa. It is what it is. So this guy, you're talking about someone who's rejuvenated. He's going to work with Bob Asenza. He's going to come in with better confidence. I mean, just by coming into Boston alone, he will probably come in as a different person. So everybody who's ripping this deal, I mean, you feasibly could still have one of the top tandems in the entire league if you're able to tap back into the good quality Korpisalo and get 35 starts out of him.
Even if you shelter his starts. I'm not worried about goaltending.
Not at all.
You have 20, 25 games to worry about. Because Swayman is picking up that many games.
Yeah. I'm not worried about it at all. And in by year 2 of the Korpisalo deal, $3 million for your backup goaltender is going to be standard. So it is what it is. DM says, what about the other guys they signed after Jones plus the dude from Ottawa? All big forwards. Do any of them have potential? Thanks, guys. Love the show. Who after they signed Max Jones? I don't remember the order that they signed everybody in.
Well, it doesn't have to be in order. Osterley, he might surprise. Guy to really keep an eye on is Jeffrey Bale. Cole Kopke, he's interesting. He was in the same situation as Oscar Steen, Group 6 unrestricted free agent. Might be a surprise there. Who's the other one? There's one more.
Was it Tuft?
Tuft. Okay. Could surprise, but these guys are there to create competition. Put up the Providence roster if you can, Chris.
Yeah, and then once we do that, we'll get caught up on some of the comments here. I know they're there. Don't worry, guys. We'll come back to them. I'm going to get this one off the screen here.
So that's where we're at now. As you know, there's a lot of left wingers, a lot of guys to create competition. You heard me say earlier they need another left-handed defenseman down in Providence. You can see that's a weak spot, very weak. Because if you need to call somebody up, Bruin and Edwards are, I guess, AHL rookies, really. So,
Yeah. And like I said, they look good in development camp, but they're not NHL ready. They're not close. They need time. They need to get used to the American Hockey League game. Now, if there's an injury and you need someone for a game, yeah, okay. You don't have to worry about waivers right now and call them up for a game, give them a taste of the pros. I would say probably Frederic Brunet is more ready for that than Jackson Edward is, but there's no rush.
I think Mike Callahan first.
Yeah, Callahan.
Because he's got a couple of years in the A.
That would make sense too. But again, that's not what you're relying on right now. That's not how you're filling in your team. I don't know. It's not that bad. Jason says, I look forward to Hampus Lindholm playing more in the offensive zone. I do think we're going to see some adjustments to how he's deployed and used. I think they want to try to get him back to where he was when McAvoy was out for so long. Peter says, are we going to get E. Lindholm and H. Lindholm jerseys?
No.
Probably. I don't know.
No.
That wasn't even, and that never entered my mind until I read this comment.
I think credit goes to Ty Anderson on this, but they didn't do it when they had the two Nashes.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. I think Freddie plays better with Coyle, and if I remember right, Geeky and Poitras played well together as well. Yep.
So did Frederick and Poitras.
Yep.
I don't want to take T-Fred away from Poitras.
No.
He's his bodyguard.
Let's see. I will be happy if Lindholm gets 72 to 80 points with good face-off percentage. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where he will probably end up at. Kevin says the best possible scenario is Lysell gets it and puts up respectable rookie numbers in the Calder conversation type season. I just don't think he's ready. I hope to be surprised.
I think he'll surprise you, Kevin.
Marshy, Coyle, Freddie, always been good line. Yeah. Let's see. I just don't want to see the Bruins give any more first-round draft picks for at least five years to build their prospect pool. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're in contention. You use those picks to get better. It is what it is. I think Jerry's still trying to guess as to which player you were referring to who had their contract offer pulled. Do you think this team is a contender?
Yes.
That's a good question.
I think they are.
I think so. It's going to be very interesting to do a dive into each division and kind of what the year is going to look like, given the free agency frenzy that all the other teams have partaken in, some of the moves that they've made. But this team, they fought for the President's Trophy until game 79, 80 last year, and a lot of people had them written off. So I think they're going to surprise a lot of people again. And, they're probably a second place team in this division, just as a rough guess right now. I'll let you know when I dive into it a little bit more, and I'm more certain on that. Matt says, what will the goalie split be? 70-30 sounds about right.
Yep.
Maybe 65-45, but yeah, I mean, I'm not that far off. Any sense on whether Sway deal gets done? Well, I think so. And I can tell you this, both Sweeney and Swayman were at Warrior today. I don't know if it means anything. Can't say I saw them in the same room together, but they were both there. And Swayman looked like he was with someone who could have been his agent. So, yeah, I know he's staying in town. They want to get the deal done. So hopefully there was a meeting that was had. That's all I'm saying. Can't make a contract if there's no meetings held. Is there any chance they extend Frederick before the start of the season?
No.
I think there's a better chance they trade him right now than there is that they extend him.
I'd have to look, but I don't think he's eligible to sign an extension till January 1.
I don't think he is either.
I'd have to look it up. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Duran could be a surprise as a question.
Yeah, could Trevor Kuntar, who's been my dark horse since the season ended.
Yep, I can vouch for that one. Renouf's still out there, I believe.
Yes, he is.
Callie is pretty close.
Okay. I don't think so, Peter. I don't. I don't think Callahan is an NHL player with the Boston Bruins.
I don't think so.
Maybe someplace else, but not in Boston.
And
yes, Walsh signed with LA.
Yeah, that's what I thought I heard. Didn't they sign Osterley? That could be some good left-handed depth if something happens.
Yes, he was on my list.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. Court jumping in says, I think Lysell and Mikulov make the team. You think both of them do?
You know what? Court knows his hockey shit. People should listen to him more.
I'm just surprised that he's saying both of them make the team, because Merkulov was not ready last year when they called him up. But
but what we do know in Boston is they're always better the second time up.
Oh yeah, for sure. Jason says if Lysell pots 15, I'd be happy. I mean, there's your Jake DeBrusk difference right there.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, don't worry about joining late. That's fine. If we covered this, but what do you think of the Zadorov for Lindholm if Lorite develops as expected? A lot of money spent on the back end.
Listen, I've been saying it since the season ended. The Bruins needed to get a left-hand defenseman so that Lorite wasn't forced to play on the top pair for 82 games. Somebody who could spell them that time. And Zadorov does that. You could put any one of the three now with McAvoy and change it up. You could put Zadorov with Peak and a pure shutdown. You could put Lindholm with Carlo as a pure shutdown.
You could put Zadorov with Carlo.
You could put Zadorov with Carlo. There's just so many ways to go now. Those three on the left side are interchangeable. What we know is McAvoy's number one on the right, Carlo's number two on the right, Peak is number three on the right.
Yeah, and I think where Brendan is also going with this concern is a lot of money spent on the back end. Right now, this year, you have 29.5 and some change spent on your back end. 33.6% of your salary cap. Next season, you deal with Mason Lohrei as an RFA, and Parker Wotherspoon becomes an unrestricted free agent. So let's say you let Wotherspoon go and you just worry about re-signing Lori. You still have McAvoy, Lindholm, Zadorov, Carlo, and Peak all under contract. So you only have to worry about Lori. And the cap's going to be going up again.
Brendan, when the salary cap first came out, pat myself on the back here, I came up with a breakdown on what NHL teams should be spending at each position. And, since then, it's a model that a lot of NHL teams use, unless you're the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I can tell you that the Bruins aren't far off on what they spend on defense. They might be 3% too high, but that's okay because they've got cheap contracts up front for the most part.
Yeah.
And next year when the cap goes up, they'll be back down to that percentage on the blue line.
Not to mention that next year you'll have ideally a few more cheap contracts as well. Like, even if Merkulov makes the team this year, he's a restricted free agent going into next season. He's not going to get a massive pay raise. He'll get a little bit. Kuntar, same thing. Lysell has one more year on his ELC. Harrison has one more year on his ELC. Duran has one more year on his ELC. None of these guys are going to break the bank next year, which is when some of them start. You want some of them to be in your lineup this year, but going into 25, 26, they're not going to be breaking the bank either. So
right.
Kevin says, even if Lindholm put up 65, 70 points with great defensive numbers and strong penalty, that's a win. Court says he knows the answer about the contract offer. I'm sure you do, Court.
Telling you, trust that guy. Follow his. Can I give Court a plug there?
Absolutely. Court's been on the show. We love him.
Yeah. Everybody follow Court on Bruins Diehards on YouTube. Great show. Won't want to miss it.
And actually, when we had Court on, I did put the link in there. So if you go back through our pod episodes, one with Court on there, the link is right in there for you as well. So Peter's got the division odds already posted. Florida's plus 210, Toronto's plus 310. Boston at plus 500 is not a terrible bet to have right there. To get five times your money back.
Mm-hmm.
Because Florida's much weaker. Toronto is still going to do Toronto things. And God knows what the hell Tampa Bay is doing right now. But we'll see. At plus 500, I'm not saying go mortgage the house or anything. But, a $5 bet at plus 500, that'll win you a little bit.
I'd feel better if that was for second place.
Yeah.
I'd put $1,000 on it.
Yeah, for second, I'd probably go that much higher. But I don't hate them. I don't hate the odds for them to win division at plus 500, though. I want to see how Florida and Toronto finish their roster moves and whatnot. But as of right now, today, if you're just betting to have fun and not betting more than you can handle losing, I don't hate those odds. Brave says the PK should be a strength this year. Yep, mm-hmm. And hopefully we can count to 5 as well. And too many men is not a weakness anymore.
I think having a coach there to coach the defense helps with that.
100%. They just gave $5 million to Zadorov over 6 years. If anyone thinks he won't get a shot with Charlie, you're delusional. I think that's where he starts.
Yeah, I think most of the time he'll be there. But, here's a question. If you're down a goal, what 2 defensemen do you put out there?
If you're down a goal?
Yeah, you got a minute and a half left. You're down a goal. What 2 defensemen do you put out there? I mean, I want McAvoy out there, but I want Zadorov out there for a shot. But I want Lori out there for his puck movement and shit. So, who do you put out?
I'd probably start with McAvoy and Zadorov. See, that's the beauty, though, because now that you have Zadorov in the mix, if it's a minute and a half, you don't have to sit there and go, we have to kill someone for 90 seconds. We can split that time. If we can get offensive zone possession, then you can start with Zadorov and then switch over to Lohrei. You can start with Lohrei and switch over to Zadorov. They're both going to be okay out there in that final minute trying to get a goal. Like, remember last year, it was strictly Hampus Lindholm on the left, no matter what. Like, if you needed a PK, you needed a power play. Like, if you needed something done on the left side, it was Hampus Lindholm or good luck for a lot of last year. What Zadorov and Lohrei are, especially Zadorov, is it's giving you someone who can take those minutes off of Lindholm. I think you're going to see a huge jump in Lindholm because you're not relying on him to be this defensive monster for you to shut everything down on the left side. Brave asks, what was the goalie number? As far as I think they're asking
9%.
9%. Right now, the Bruins, without Swayman signed, are at 3.4%. Oh, goody. Let's see. Who has a better D than the Bruins 1 through 6? We'll take a look once the monsters are all built out, but theirs is going to be up there for sure.
Off the top of my head, I can't. I haven't really looked at rosters since free agency, but
say, off the top of my head, I can't think of any, but I'm sure there's a couple out there that will at least compete. I'll put it that way. Yes, Peter's saying Boston fans are going to love Kuntar. I really hope he makes it coming out of camp. Kevin says Toronto's defense is not going to be much better. They're still the same team, first round exit. I want to dive more into the moves that they've made, but there's a lot of turnover there on that defense, and I believe right now they're actually over the cap.
Morgan Riley is still your number one defenseman.
There's a lot there. Peter says, wait till you see the odds when Marner gets traded for Jacob Trouba, straight up.
Yeah.
Let's see, Carlo and Zadorov. I think that's if you're up a goal. Those are the two guys that you want out there. Carlo and Zadorov. If you're defending a 1-goal lead. Hopefully Zadorov settles Mac down.
I think he will.
I think so, yeah. Let's see. Kevin said Mac and Lohrei for that. Top power play, who's the D-man? Do we start to integrate Lohrei? Do they stick with McAvoy, who, in my opinion, was awful?
I think Lohrei starts out on the second power play unit. I did not give him
Who's your first?
Right now, I would try Zadorov.
Okay, that's fair. Give him a shot with it.
Yeah, because what's one thing I bitched about for 2 seasons now? They don't have a blue liner that can shoot the puck.
Yeah.
If they're intent on using 2 defensemen on the second unit, then Chucky and Lohrei are on the second unit, Zadorov on the first unit.
That makes sense. Jason says Lohrei and Mac for sure. Kevin says Lohrei has the best offensive mind for defensemen on the team. He's who I want there. Court says the Bruins defense is interchangeable besides McAvoy, and that is a huge advantage. Yep. Brock wants to know, what is Kuntar's ceiling?
His ceiling is he will top his ceiling would be a third line left winger, speed, excellent shot, provides energy, can kill penalties, give you some offense. That's his ceiling. But I think he's probably a fourth liner who can bring all those things.
Peter also says, I think he's going to amp up Mac, talk about Zadorov. Mac seeing Zadorov lay the hammer, he's going to want to join in. Yeah, that'll help. Let's see. Peter says Mac isn't a good power play guy. He's just okay. And then Steve with a good point. Just winning more faceoffs will change game outcomes, and Hampus Lindholm will help contribute to that.
Mm-hmm.
Alex says Zadorov on the power play. He has never played power play minutes in the NHL. He's a defensive defenseman. What? Let me see if I can find some power play numbers here for Zadorov.
Just because a player's never played it doesn't mean he can't do it.
There's also that. I'm sure he's been on the power play, though.
If the idea is to have somebody on the point who can shoot the puck, he's the guy. There's nobody else on the team that can do it like he can.
Let's see.
Zadorov has PP experience at every level, except the NHL. I'll take your word for it. But I've also seen him play the bumper on the power play.
Let's see. I'm trying to narrow down here.
Doesn't matter, Chris. I'm willing to take him at his word.
Last year, he got 49 shifts 5-on-4 for the Vancouver Canucks. But keep in mind, that's a team that also had Philip Hronek and Quinn Hughes. I'm sorry, but I'm not playing him on the power play over Quinn Hughes. Peter says, Lohrei can run PP1 all day. I'm not sure he's there yet. Not at the NHL level. I give him PP2 to start and let him earn his way on to power play 1. Kevin says that's funny. Peter mentions that because Zadorov talked about how Chucky lays the hits down pretty well in the neutral zone. Could have been Lindholm who said that, though. I don't remember which one. Matt says, Kostelic fights AJ Greer opening night. Book it.
Okay,
maybe.
it's possible.
And then Jason says Zadorov and Edwards could be an interesting pair down the road.
Could be.
Jackson Edwards is going to be a fun pairing with anybody down the road.
Jackson Edwards hasn't even played an American Hockey League game yet.
I know. I'm just saying he's going to be fun to watch wherever he's paired down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to him in Providence this year. That's all I can say. That's really the best thing for it. I mean, Providence is going to be a very interesting team to watch this year. There's going to be a lot of guys up there who are getting their first touch of AHL action. Actually another underrated look at camp this year is Drew Bavaro. He's looked really good. So, let's see what else. I mean, we're caught up on comments. Was there something else that you wanted to get back to?
Not off the top of my head, no.
I feel like there was something else that we had put a pin in earlier, but no one's at least posted the correct name on that contract. I'll mention that. Let's see. Jason starts off with, I wish Liesel didn't go home and train with Marchand. I mean, at the same time, I would say that I'm kind of glad he went home, see how he trains on his own. If he can't train himself into getting to the job that he wants, then he's not going to ever get there. So, Peter says, any concern on ownership spending if they lose the Celtics rent?
Why are the Celtics building their own arena?
Supposedly the Celtics are up for sale. And then I guess today there was talks about new ownership may want to look to build their own arena. I mean, I'll put it this way, Peter. Anything like that, you're talking 5 years away. They'll have plenty of time to find ways to recreate that revenue with other shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, no. Let's say the Celtics were bought tomorrow and they said, this is where we're going to get a new arena. We're going to put it here. All right, we'll give it another week to get approved by the city. You start building it in a month. All right, August 1, they're building a new arena. It's still 3 years down the road. Do you know how many concerts that they can start booking 3 years in advance? They'll have a waiting list. They'll be fine. I have no worries about that. Besides, they'll just start charging you more for the Coke. That's all.
Yeah.
Peter wants to know if you think Lori will sign a bridge deal.
Yeah.
I don't see why he wouldn't. He's only going to have a year and a half of NHL experience under his belt. So it would behoove him to do that. Leo says player would probably be Heinen.
Me lips are sealed.
Kevin says they just want, they will just be able to add more concerts and other events. Exactly.
They could have me go in there and do a tap dancing show.
I was going to say, we'll just project your cap. We'll do Dom friendly on the big screen.
Yeah.
And you can just give lectures on how the cap works.
Yeah.
Those will sell out.
That should be good for 3 fans in the seats.
Oh, yeah. Plus this. Chad says, I think the Celtics lease runs for another 8 years or so. Yeah, that helps too. Let's see. They would need. I'm not even all that worried about it, Jason. I mean, there's a lot of shit to have to go through. Hoops have to be jumped through, and the team still hasn't even been fucking sold yet. So let's let it become a problem when it becomes a problem. Let's see. Any concern about all the righty C's on the roster?
No. Because you've got Frederick who can take face-offs. You got, well, I don't know where Patra's at right now. But you got, I'm not concerned about it at all. You got Zaka who can take face-offs if need be.
Let's see. Kevin says, I mean, if Flora wants to sign at $2.5 million by 8 years, I'm all for it. Yeah, I don't see that one happening. Mav has a good question. Top 3 standouts from Dev Camp so far.
Well, first of all, I got to tell you that I am unable to make it to development camp because my private jet is in to have its engine replaced. So
I would
there
say,
you go, Chris.
I would have to say Brunei on the back end for sure. Mirenberg on the back end. I'll give you 4, 2D and 2 forwards. And then up front, Lockmells and I mean, given the fact that he's only been on the team for 4 days, Dean Letourneau is standing. He's making good impressions for first two days in. The guy's been not even under contract. He's been drafted for a week, and you got to like what you're seeing from him so far. Hey, he's composing himself well. He knows how to use the body. Kevin says, if my response isn't Mirenberg, Kuntar, and Mirenberg, Dom will whack me. Problem is Kuntar's not there.
Yeah, come on.
Kevin, catch up. Let's see. Who steps up if Liesel and Merkulov can't make the cut?
On second line, right wing, I'm afraid it would be Morgan Geekie.
I think Geekie would get slid in there. I think that's where you would start to see Patrick Brown more on the fourth line. And that's when you would start to probably see other guys who are performing, potentially get called up and see if they can do anything while you're trying to make a move for a trade or something. Peter says Jeremy is going to buy them with that hot dog and nachos money.
Yeah.
Does this project to be Lockmellis last year of NCAA? Oh, does this project to be Lockmellis's last year in the NCAA?
No.
I don't think so. I think he's got.
I'll tell you who projects to have their last year in the NCAA is Oscar Jelvik.
Yes, he's
I think Loch Mellis, if he has a good year, becomes trade bait.
Yeah.
Because right now, uh, you've got Lindholm at center for the next 7 years. You've got Patra for the next 15. You've got Beecher for the next 12. And you've just drafted Letourneau, who's going to be a staple there. Where's Loch Mellis going to fit in?
Yeah. Yeah. That is an interesting point. I mean, unless you're looking to somehow at some point, I mean, there's no point in looking to move on from Lindholm. You're kind of stuck with him. Um, that's that's an interesting piece to move though. He could get you something if he has a good year. Moo Moo says Mirenberg can't play in the AHL due to SHL agreement, right?
Um,
I believe he's got one more year.
well, he's got a new contract that starts next season for 2 years. There are options. The new NHL SHL agreement does not allow him to come over until he is 24 years old, unless he's a first round pick. Or the Bruins can buy out his contract and secure his release and then have him come over.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I think you're just going to wait until he's able to come over.
He's coming over next year.
Yeah.
He will come over. The Bruins have to sign him by June 1st. The Bruins will do the right thing. They'll buy out his contract. They'll have him come over.
Kevin says, I'm not there either, so don't expect me to know these things. Kevin, I expect you to have paid attention to the roster, at least, because it was sent out on your favorite place in the world, Twitter. Peter says, do we get Draisaitl next year?
No.
I don't think so. I think he stays in Edmonton, and you have the centers that you have. Brendan wants to know, can Loch Mellis slide to wing?
He's played some wing, but not a lot.
Would you possibly consider moving Poitras to the wing and pairing him with Loch Mellis?
No. And I think the Bruins are dead set against it too.
I think Poitras is set to be a center. I wouldn't want
you put him away. You put him on wing, and you've changed his entire game.
Yeah, makes sense. Kevin wants to know, can Merkulov play center too?
Yes, he's a centerman.
He is still playing center, right? Okay. Let's see. Walter says, are you 100% sold on Poitras and his health on an ongoing basis?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, right now he's still recovering from the injury. I'd like to see him put on another 7 to 10 pounds, but there's time for him to do it. And he's already put on half of what you're looking for, and he's been recovering from shoulder surgery. So if anyone can do it, I'm not putting anything past this kid. I'm not. Matrix says, can't wait for the Zadorov clap from the point.
Clap bomb.
Sorry. Kevin says, I don't get hyped for development camp anymore. I just wait for Dom to tell me who to look for.
Nobody listens to me, Kevin. Come on. Who listens to me? I watched Oscar Jelvik play junior hockey in Sweden for 2 years and was raving about this kid, and nobody said a word. Nobody said a word until he busted out in the NCAA a season ago. And everybody's all high and mighty, but nobody says, hey, Dom's been talking about this guy for 3 years.
Some of us do.
Nobody listens to me, Kevin. Nobody.
Some of us.
I come out and I tell you guys that Trevor Kuntar is my sleeper to make the roster next season. Now everybody is saying it, but
Yeah.
nobody ever says Dom said it first.
I tell you, I say that. I always try to point out that you've been saying it for basically since the year ended. Since Poitras made the team, I think you were like, all right, now going into next year, watch Kuntar.
Yeah, like nobody listens to me.
So Walter says Draisaitl Vegas odds have Boston as the favorite. I want you to recheck that list, Walter, and see if Edmonton's actually on that list. Because if it's the list that I saw, they're not on the list. Because it's the list that they're the favorite should he leave Edmonton. He's not leaving Edmonton. Matt wants to know, did any of the invites impress at Dev Camp? I wouldn't say they're jumping off the page, but they're holding their own for sure. The goalies look good. Bischel and Svedback are the ones that we have rights with, but the other two look okay. I think there's also a little bit of they know their fill-ins because this team's all set with goaltending, but they're holding their own. They'll be fine. They better not do Murenberg like they did my boy Mantikivi.
Mantikivi, I'll tell you what the issue is. I'll just come out and say it. Jamie Langenbrunner wasn't a fan because of his size. It's that simple. And you look at what they've done since they did not sign him to a contract, they've gotten bigger. Guys that are 5, 6, 7 inches bigger than he is. Yeah. And that's why he wasn't signed.
Yeah. Not to say that he's not going to do anything ever, but this team has made it known what their direction is. Mm-hmm. They want trees. Trees who can skate. Taz says, what can be holding up Swayman? Do you think he wants a shorter term so he can re-up in 3-4 years? Maybe Bruins are lowballing him in AAV. Look, I'll let you take it.
I'm not into conspiracy theories. It's just the way negotiations go. Swayman's under pressure from outside sources to hold out for as much as he can to, let's put it this way. Goalies have been underpaid for a long time. They're the only guys out there for 60 minutes a night, and they're underpaid compared to some players out there. So he's under pressure to hold out for as much as he can from outside sources to help bring the goalie dollars up.
Yeah, I mean, and then he has leverage in a situation too where he can do it. And it's not like they need to have the deal done tomorrow. There's no deadlines make shit happen, and there's no deadline that's impending right now.
Right.
So they're not, plus if they're doing a long-term contract, you're going to have no movement, no trade clause language that you've got to work out, bonus structure that you've got to work out. He's going to be looking for protection against the lockout season that's potentially coming. Like, all that shit takes time to work out. It's not as simple as just going, pay the guy $8 million a year and have a nice day.
The Bruins know what it's going to take. They left the money there.
Yeah. There's enough there for them to sign him and make another small move. Period. Now, is it going to be the move that we all want? Probably not. But there's enough room for a move or to bank cap space and make a good move at the deadline. Kevin says Vegas putting Boston as favorites to land Draisaitl is so they can get easy money off people when he doesn't come here. That's all that is. Gamble
exactly.
Yep. Guy Force says, hey, I listen to Dom. He's great. Hey, that's what we're all here for.
Don't listen to me.
Walter says, if I had to make a wager, at least sell Merkulov at our right wing too. Yeah, so far. But they've got to step up and get it. That's what we've been saying. Kevin points out Pastrnak didn't sign until the end of the summer years back. There's nothing to worry about with Sway. It'll get done. There's a ton of key RFAs not signed across the league right now. I'm not sure which decision, but I'm with you on that one. Walter says the decor are Giants now. They're all, 6'2", 6'3", or bigger, except for McAvoy, who's 6'1".
Yeah.
Am I right on that?
Yeah.
He says Swayman's agent is what's holding it up. There's, like he said, there's a lot of things holding up that deal. He's a tough negotiator historically. There's just a lot to hammer out with it. That's all. 8x8 mil for Swayman in the end, in my opinion. Like I said, it's more complicated than just slapping numbers down with an AAV. It's way more than that. Peter says Bruins are at 3-1 to get Draisaitl if he leaves Edmonton. And I'm right here with Court. Bruins are not trading for Draisaitl. Can we stop with this? Like, there's just no. When was the last time they made a swing like that in a trade market?
Brad Park for Phil Esposito.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, what you're saying is they don't make that kind of swing in a trade. They just don't.
No, not.
And that's fine. It's going to cost.
That's the last one I can think of.
I wouldn't even trade for Draisaitl right now. Like,
I wouldn't either.
Let's see. Was asking which one, Liesel or Mikulov. I think Liesel's more ready for it, but he's also got more concern when it comes to his compete factor. So we'll have to see how they come into camp. Honestly, right now, I think they have a 50-50 shot. And, maybe 33.3% for one of them and then 33.3% for other. So Kevin says people will believe anything. They do. We're talking about looking forward to Yelvik coming out of college and Luck Mellis as potential trade bait. Round of applause for PJ. Let's see. They can't trade for Draisaitl. They have no assets for that. Would have to be a free agent signing next year, if ever. I mean, you have a couple assets. You've got Swayman. You've got Poitras. You've got Lohrei. You've got some assets that'll at least get them to take the call. But that's where the question is it worth it? And no. If you want to become Toronto, go ahead, sign Draisaitl for $12 million a year. It's not about the swing. It's about Edmonton moving him, which they're not. Exactly. Period.
Next one. I want to touch on that one.
Ken Hodge for Rick Middleton.
That was a big trade, but that's not at the level of a Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah, and last time I checked, Peter, Sergei Gonchar's not at that level either. It just they don't operate that way. Anyway, we got a little less than 10 minutes here to go. How are you feeling about the team so far? How they've done in free agency? Just so far their approach.
I like a lot of what they've done. Obviously, they address some needs. I would give Sweeney a B+, A-.
Fair. That's exactly
somewhere
right.
in there.
Walter, we were talking about this earlier. He asked who will be Zadorov's defensive partner. I think you'll see him play with everybody. I think you will.
Peter, Barry Peterson is not at the level of a Leon Draisaitl, Phil Esposito, Brad Park type. Cam Neely was barely a rookie at the time. Nobody knew Cam Neely was going to turn out to be what he was. So no, that trade doesn't compare.
Kevin says, my favorite part of this offseason is they've picked a direction and they're going with it full force. Yeah. Which is nice to see. They identified a couple holes in the lineup and they went after them. They targeted a couple guys, Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov, and they went out and they got it done. They got their shit handled. So that's all promising. And around the Boston area, Boston media, Boston Twitter, all that crap, you get so much Don Sweeney hate. And yet you go to any other team and the amount of respect that they have for him as a general manager, he is a top 3 general manager in the league. He may even be the best general manager in the entire league. And if you go to Boston, everybody wants, all you hear is about how he should lose his job because they don't win a cup every year. B+, A-, he's doing his job. There's nothing wrong with it. This is a good question from JFM. What does successful year look like for Montgomery? He's going into the last year of his contract.
Conference finals.
When do you think they start talking contract extension with Montgomery?
After the season. I'd be surprised if they sign him to an extension before the season is over. It would shock me.
Okay. I mean, I don't disagree. It's just that a lot of coaches and a lot of teams don't seem to operate on expiring contracts for their coaches.
I don't know. I'm asked a question about Montgomery. I'm giving you my answer. I do not sign. If it were me, I do not sign him to an extension until the season is over.
I don't disagree with the sentiment. So
they improved the team. Okay. I think the team is improved. So some of the people watching may disagree with me. So with the team improved, we need to see an improvement in finish from the coaching staff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, Eastern Conference Final is a good benchmark. You know, I mean, again, if you go to the semifinal and you lose in a close game 7 and the team is playing well, like there's a little bit of leeway in there, obviously, but
there is, but listen to Sweeney's comments, okay, and you know, people can't just hear the words; you have to take the meaning from it. And when he says that he felt that the team left something on the table and they should have gone to a game 7. Who does that fall on?
It falls on the coach.
If it's on him, okay, he improved the team. I think massive improvement. Now, if they don't take that step, who does it fall on?
Yeah, for sure. Jason says, I'm a big Jay Leach guy. He was amazing in Providence. Let's see, Walter, I think he may have jumped in a little late. So does Lorai start off as third pairing? Yeah, you make him work his way up. That's kind of where we're at with that one. Peter says, I think I missed this one back here. Going the other way, the Jumbo Joe trade was like Draisaitl. Jimbo's got to tighten up those playoff record. Too many men penalties. Kevin says the amount of diaper filling online over Sweeney is maddening to me. Can't get over the majority of this fan base. I don't even want to know what the average IQ is. And
higher than mine. And
Kevin, do you remember how you see how many of them are still living in 9 years ago? That's the other thing too. Jerry says Swayman is an RFA. I'm not sure many have signed yet. Jarvis, Nietzsche, Drury in Carolina, Sider, Robertson, Raymond. I mean, there's a lot of unsigned UFAs or RFAs that got offer sheets. So I'm not really looking to worry about it just yet. Once we have a deadline in sight, all right, that's when we start having the conversation. Should we be worrying? That was terrible on the too many men. Sweeney took that shot at Monty regarding the 2-1 games in the playoffs. Yeah. Sometimes you got to have management call out the coach. So, Walter, we don't talk about that anymore.
No, that's what I was born, Walter.
We don't talk about that. Anyway, I know it's 8:00 here on the Eastern Coast. and I know we're up against it here. Do you have any final thoughts off of this last crazy week? I mean, we've got a starting goalie caliber player traded. We've got unrestricted free agency. We've got development camp.
Yeah, like I mean, I there's people that are ready to jump off a cliff. I mean, I had one guy come at me today with his comments. And my reply to him simply was, uh, "So you're not going to be watching again, then, right?"
Yeah,
Like, let's be realistic. It's July 2nd. We don't know what this team is capable of. We know what it is on paper. To me, it's improved over a year ago. But let's not be jumping off cliffs because, there's much more important things in life than to worry about a hockey game. Um, let's see what happens.
and let's also not forget that last year everybody thought this team was going to come in and try to compete for a wild card, fourth place finish, fifth place finish, just out of the playoffs, and they were fighting for the President's Trophy right down to the end. So if this team is a little bit better on paper, and I agree with you on that, than it was last year, theoretically you should be hovering right around the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, like Kevin says, Sweeney builds a successful team. It's up to the players and coaching staff to get it done. I don't know what they want the guy to do. Him and Evan Gold have done magic with this cap staying competitive. Yeah, they're doing their job.
If I was Evan Gold and Sweeney come out and said it on his press conference, he has people tell him what's being said on Twitter. If I was Evan Gold, I'd leave town. The guy has a brilliant mind, is capable of being a GM. But if I were him, I wouldn't want to have to listen to this crap every day.
Yeah.
I'd be looking for the first bus out of town.
Yeah. It's just get over some of it, though. That's all I got to say. Real quick, couple final thoughts. Walter says you can't always solve every perceived issue in one offseason. Giving the Kidsley, Sell, and or Merkulov a chance at second right wing makes sense. They will have cap room at trade deadline or next offseason if they need more scoring. Things are better and should be fun. Absolutely. And Jason, I did not ignore this one. He says, I think the East got weaker. Florida, Tampa, and Carolina all got weaker, in my opinion. We will be reviewing some of that stuff all down the road as well. It's going to be an interesting year. Shaz says I think coaching was a big reason they lost in 2023. I can't say I disagree with that statement, but you also got to allow the coach to learn as much as the players. And this is a huge year for Montgomery. That's where you're going to look at this year at the NHL level. But
I'm on record saying on this very show, somebody needed to pay the price.
I agree with you. It just you can't go back and fire them now, so you're stuck with the decision. So with that though, I think we're good for this week. Thank you everybody for jumping in and joining us. Give us a follow on YouTube. If you can, it's What's Bruin 6342 on YouTube. Subscribe and get the little bell going every time we come on here. Big things happen. We'll come on sometimes without even announcing it. Sometimes we won't wait until the weekly show, but we try to be here every week. And with that, Dom, the last thing I got is go Bees.
Yeah, and don't follow me because I don't know what I'm talking